Market Gates Group Managing Director, Michelle Snyder. I want to start with Bitcoin, Michelle, because you seem to be a believer. Right now, millions of people kicking themselves for not buying it. I tried to buy one dip, that one dip from 20 to 17,000, whatever. It didn't work out for me. I couldn't get the account open. Should people try to nuance this thing and wait for the dip, or just get in if they want to be a part of this?
Well, I think you have to really define dip. Last week we had a dip because it went from 40 up to 49 and went down to 44. There was your dip. So now we have to have a new definition for dip. Right now, 49 to 50 will be your dip. And if that holds, then we can see it going up to 60 or more. The bigger idea of Bitcoin is people are likening it, let's say, to the tulip bulb mania. Well, that mania went on for a long time before it peaked out. And this may not turn out to be a mania because of the blockchain technology and because it's changing the whole face of investing and valuations and institutional interest. And the fact that all these institutions are jumping on is only legitimizing it, ETFs, et cetera. So I would say right now, look at 49.50. If you don't want to wait too long, we're not that far away, that would be your breaking point where I would get out. And I think we still see a lot of upside here, at least for now.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt when you start to hear about BNY Mellon, the oldest bank in America, when you start to see some of these long-standing, financial institutions say, hey, we want to be a part of this, or at least acknowledge its existence and facilitate it, that's the kind of foundation that, the tulip bubble never had.
Exactly. This is really a much more legitimate face. And add to that MicroStrategy borrowing $900 million to buy more Bitcoin. So the cap right now is at around $1 trillion, and it looks like it could continue to grow.
Yeah. Brilliant strategy, Michael Saylor. Maybe Robinhood should have bought some Bitcoin early on. Maybe they would have been able to facilitate all those trades. But I digress. All right, listen, it's not as sexy as Bitcoin, but golly, it was supposed to be a huge loser under President Biden. Instead, crude oil is crushing it. It continues, and now it's on the cusp of this monster breakout. So the same question, do you chase a move that's already been pretty big, knowing that it's still well off multi-year highs? Can it go much higher from here?
Well, I think what happened with the winter storms, it was sort of a sea change a bit in terms of philosophy, in that the wind turbines and some of the alternative energy just didn't really help get people through this storm. And where are you going to turn to oil and gas? And of course, that had some issues too down in Texas. But nonetheless, we're still an oil and gas economy, and that's what we're still most reliant on. So in terms of the consumption, apart from the storm and the fact that with demand coming back and the possibility of us flying in the air again, I think that oil could go higher. But like with everything else, I always like to caution from a technical standpoint, you have to know where you're wrong, and you have to know what to do in order to take profit when you're right. And right now, if we're just looking simply at the instrument USO, which I like to trade,
right
now that it broke through 40, if it's going to hold 40, maybe I would risk down to 38.50, and if it gets through 44, we can see 50, and that's kind of how you have to trade right now in these increments.
Yeah, I like that. You got a 25% upside, you give yourself less than 10% on the downside. That sounds like great risk reward. Let me ask you about this phenomenon with these new, these new evangelists of the stock market who are not professional advisors. We saw it a lot on Reddit now. Clubhouse is a new phenomenon. It's all part of the retail revolution, but as someone who does this professionally, are you concerned that so many superstars in market, advisory have no real advisory, no real practical experience?
Well, sort of yes and no, because I think what happens is that the dust eventually falls away and you get to see what's really solvent. That's the things that stick around. So in terms of the Reddit,
right,
we have some really interesting minds there. In terms of Clubhouse, we know that Musk is very busy in there right now trying to legitimize it. So I think that you really have to, again, have some level of an education, obviously, and don't follow anybody blind. But I'm very encouraged by this because they're really changing, again, the landscape, and they're making trading in and of itself much more active. So that's a good thing.
I agree with you 100%. No one could ever accuse you of being a player hater, that's for sure, Michelle. Give us a lot of good information to work with, as usual. Thank you.